Welcome to another episode of Health Matters with P.A. Lynn Zabo. And we're going to continue our conversation from last week. Is that correct?
Yep. Decisions that you should be making now on how you want your body processed after your death. So kind of creepy, but really important.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
And it's not something that we typically talk about in
No.
Western societies. And it's such a huge thing. And then when we're faced with it for a loved one, we are at a loss and
Right.
end up spending $750 on a pillow or $900 on a seal for the casket. And we just don't know what that's like.
Right. And alternatives are coming at us pretty fast. And I don't think people are as aware of them as they should be.
Yeah.
So today I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are different from embalming and different from composting. But the first one is called water cremation. And they also call it
Water cremation?
water cremation. It's also called biocremation or aquamation.
Aquamation.
That
So
sounds
like
kinda
Aquaman.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds cool. So it's an alternative way of disposing of human remains. And what they do is they put the body in a pressurized vessel and alkaline with an alkaline water solution with potassium hydroxide. So a bunch of different chemicals happening in an alkaline environment with a lot of water and some potassium hydroxide. And then it's pressurized and heated to just before boiling. So it's
Ew.
kind of like making a human soup. It's the grossest way to look at it.
Right. I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, we'll keep talking. So this breaks the flesh down into the chemical components, which include amino acids, peptides, sugars, and salts. So essentially the flesh and probably some of the bone is kind of condensed into the absolute molecular level.
But is it okay? So so if it's being boiled, does all that water is being put around you? You're being reduced.
Mm-hmm.
So, ew.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's just humans. Ew. It's just the slime. Okay.
So the liquid is poured off into the sewer system sometimes,
Oh no.
which some people have issues with, or it's used to hydrate a green space. So it's kind of like a human soup specific to.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with the
person.
green space, but I get the human, right? Because there's a lot of places too that use human manure, compost it, and then sell it back to their
Right.
community as community compost. And then you have other places that recycle sewer water, clean it back up, and put it into the system again.
Yeah.
So,
it's
that would be
breaking
drinking
you.
grandma.
Yeah, bringing you down to your molecules and then recycling.
Yeah, that just sounds like a weird way of saying we're gonna make cannibalism a thing.
I know.
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan. I'm
So-
sorry if this is your choice to do when you pass away.
No, this
Good on
isn't.
you, but
no, I'm
not for me.
I'm on team composting. Anyway, the bones are soft and porous and easily crushed.
Is
in
that from the
dust. Yeah.
alkalinity of the solution?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they're oftentimes crushed a little bit and then crushed in the same kind of crusher that they use for cremation and then returned to the family. So this initially started as a way to dispose of animal bodies,
Okay.
which also is a little bit of an ooh, I think.
Yeah. How is it? Because there's a water shortage. How is there? Is it not like a lot of water being
It's
used?
not water. It's kind of an alkaline solution that's got some water in it, and then also.
But that's like saying wine isn't water; it's just grape juice. But there's water content in there.
Yeah, there's water content in there.
Okay, so is that? I'm wondering just how much water is actually used for the average sized American, and then if that's a good use of water, since we have a
I
scarcity
think it
in
depends
areas.
on where you are. I mean,
Yeah, because it wouldn't be an issue here. We have
Right.
plenty of water.
right. Yeah, I don't know. It probably different, and there's probably slightly different variations on how to do it. And one thing that I found actually is I didn't see a lot of businesses that were upfront and saying that this was a service they provide, which I
It's
thought
creepy.
was a little weird. Anyway,
But most new things are creepy. And again, if anybody listening to this is the choice that you have made. I support your right to make that decision.
Right.
It's a new thing for me, and my brain's trying to process. And I think most people are that way when you hear something new that you don't fully understand.
Right.
We just call it creepy and dismiss it. So
Right.
I apologize. I'm not trying to be that person, but it's creepy, and
But
I don't want to think about it.
Despite that, it is trending in the United States as more states legalize it.
Right, because I can see where if you're not using a lot of water and you're using less
Right.
energy than the power needed for cremation,
Right.
that it is right. But putting the liquid back into the sewer system is odd. But how else are you supposed to dispose of it? And then I just kind of like you talk about the bones becoming soft and porous, and I'm just like thinking about the toys I had in the '70s with the rubber arms, and then like how do you crush that? Like that's
Oh
so
no,
weird.
it's more like styrofoam, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
ugh. Yeah, my
But
brain's just
it does sterilize bodies that are contaminated with disease particles. Remember, we said with composting that certain people with certain diseases like tuberculosis or Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
which is the human form of mad cow.
Yeah.
So that's a prion disease, and I thought heat and those types of things didn't destroy that. So is that because it's the chemical
Yeah.
would destroy the prion?
Yeah, it's probably a temperature and a pH thing. And since there's a growing popularity, unfortunately, some religions are not super hip to it. So forbidden by the Roman Catholic Church, and also for Judaism, and for the same reasons we're kind of averse to it, is it doesn't sound like it's a dignified end for somebody's body. But I think those two religions also want people to remain intact as possible. So on the second coming or whatever end we're hurtling toward, bodies can be reanimated and risen from the grave in good condition.
Right.
So
That one always made me laugh, even as a kid in church when I was told the same thing. It's just
Right.
like, how can we're going to say that we were created from the dust of the earth and formed
right.
and made in the image of God, and yet we're going to say if we're cremated, then that's the line he can't cross. He can't fix that.
Yeah,
He
if
can't.
you can reanimate corpses, I guess, then why?
Why would being cremated change? Even if
Yeah,
you were
why would that
scattered
change?
throughout the earth, are you going to tell me that God can't put y'all back together? I don't understand
Yeah, I don't
how Christians limit God with any of those things.
I don't understand that either.
As a Christian, I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me.
Me either. So Sikhs, Hindus, and Buddhists, of course, focus on cremation, and so they're not really interested in supporting this. But this is an important traditional burial ritual in the beliefs of Native Hawaiians.
Really?
This is essentially what they were doing to their dead, their deceased, before the illegal takeover of their kingdom by probably Cook.
By the United
at-
States. The
at
United
all,
States stole
but-
Hawaii.
Yeah.
So,
this-
what did they use for the chemicals? Do you know?
I think they use seawater,
Oh, okay.
right? And it's spelled IMU, the ritual they have, but it's pronounced EVE. That's how they say it in their language,
Okay.
as far as my non-Hawaiian abilities could take me.
Okay. You
But
Howie.
but it's legal in Hawaii, and it's utilized to a growing extent by the community, Native Hawaiian community there.
Well, now we have to call
so-
Hawaiian and have them explain it so that my brain isn't like, ew,
I
your bones become
know.
rubber.
Right? It's not rubber; it's like styrofoam. Anyway,
Sorry.
it's legal in 24 of the states in the United States, including California and Oregon, since 2009. So we could go either way, north or south. But it's also been used for a long time to dispose of donated bodies to medical schools.
Is that because typically the bodies that are donated are from diseased patients? I wonder if that's actually true or if that's just something I've assumed.
I think they assumed the responsibility of body disposal. This is a kind of cheap way to do it. It's something they could have on site at the medical school, and it's just been used in a lot of medical schools on the down low.
So if you donate your body to science, you're going to a medical school, or you're going to like a specific.
The ones that go to a medical school, not all of them go to medical schools. Some of them are. Oh, we should do a show on that, on the book Stiff. If you're interested in what happens to donated bodies, there's a book called Stiff, and I've always wanted to give a little book report on it because it's fascinating the directions that they go.
Absolutely. I'll give my sister-in-law a call. And that's what my brother did when he passed away of the salivary cancer, because it was rare, and his was so aggressive that he didn't want any other families to have to go through that. So that's what he did. So I'll call and see if she's willing to give me the information to find out where he went and those types of things.
Yeah, and there's kind of a difference, I think, of where there's a whole bunch of different ways that somebody could end up as a donated body. It's not just in formaldehyde and dropped off at the CR Anatomy lab.
Right, or the body farm that they have in that one state to see how the decomposition works. I'm not a fan of that one either.
They got a couple body farms.
I would love to hear about that if you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I always thought it was interesting. So there also seems to be places in the states where it's legal, but like I said, nobody has really stepped forward to do it. But I think that's changing. It is more ecologically acceptable. It uses less energy than cremation. It puts out less toxic byproducts than like embalming. It uses less space than, let's say, composting. And that's an issue in some other countries, like especially like places where, like Japan, where the burial plots are used again and again and again, kind of like
cremation's a huge thing in Japan.
Right.
That would make sense too. So for the Hawaiian people too, if you're on an island, you have limited land.
Right.
It's not like you can go cut down a forest and create new spaces for.
Right.
It's very logical, and I'm sure
it's a lot less expensive. And so there are people that have done this. Desmond Tutu, after he passed. Remember him, a religious man in Africa?
Yeah, he did the water?
Yeah, he did this as a way of, shining a light on it or calling attention to it as an option.
Wow.
Because he was on board with, it is said, it's not like I sat down and visited with him, but it is
that
said,
would be pretty cool. If you ever do sit down with him after he's dead, you be sure to tell us.
I know. That'll be a whole show. Maybe more. But he wanted to put it out there that it was an ecological alternative, and one that, in his point of view, his religious viewpoint would sanction. So that was good.
That is. That's actually pretty cool.
It is
to
cool.
get, the people like me who are narrow-minded and instantly think, ew,
right,
and then don't have the ability to open up their mind and actually kind of get more information. So.
Right. He's an enlightened being.
So now he's an ascended master. Sorry.
So the next thing I want to talk about is sea burial. And this mostly happens in the ocean. There's actually a reason for that. So there's two ways somebody can be buried at sea. And one is either ashes are scattered, so the cremation happens and then ashes are scattered, or entire bodies can be kind of tossed either fully in a coffin, like a weighted coffin, or in a shroud, a weighted shroud.
Okay.
And but there's a lot of kind of interesting to me. The EPA oversees this, the military oversees this, and everybody has a bunch of particular conditions and rules that they want it to happen by.
Yeah, but nobody follows those. I mean, how many people have you seen here even in Josephine and Jackson County, not just Del Norte and Curry, right? They take their loved ones out into the woods or into a creek or a stream or their favorite spot they went camping, and take the cremated remains and then slowly put it into the waterway or into the ocean or anything else.
Right.
Nobody gets permission and permits. Well,
No.
I've never seen anybody actually do it legally.
No, we never did. And actually, burial at sea happened a lot in the Castro during the early days of HIV because none of the funeral homes would take the patients for embalming.
Oh my
and so
gosh.
oftentimes they got shrouded in weighted shrouds, and depending on the time of day for the tide, usually at night. You know, at the mouth of the San Francisco Bay, they got tossed off the ocean side of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh my God.
I have knowledge of people who ended up that way.
Okay, just for people listening and who haven't heard your episode, you worked in the Castro in the 80s in the height of the AIDS epidemic. And that's in the San
In
Francisco
the worst,
area.
in the darkest days of it.
And that was a horrible time. I'm just going to go back to this and ask, for my own personal curiosity, were the funeral homes afraid of community retaliation, or do you think they were afraid of AIDS, that even with the person being dead, they were could you still, I guess scientifically, can you still get it from the person when they're dead?
Yeah, I think it was like the early days of COVID. Everybody was afraid of everything.
Yeah, but I grew up being told you could get it from mosquitoes. So you didn't want to live next to somebody who was gay, because if the mosquito went to their house and then came to yours, you were all going to die.
Oh yeah, my grandmother was not happy that I was working with these people as patients. She wanted to know if I had protective equipment on and did I really touch them. Of course.
Right, and it was Princess Diana and her refusal. Right, talk about an amazing woman. She hugged AIDS patients, not just children, but gay men with lesions on their face.
Right.
She walked without a vest through minefields until somebody ran and told her she had to wear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A woman
I
whose
appreciate
time
what
ended
you did too.
Yeah, too soon. So the reason that most ocean burials, let's just assume we're not scattering ashes at this point, that we're just burying a corpse in the ocean. The reason it happens in the ocean is that salt water is more effective at actually causing the decay of the body. So, as we know from shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, cue the Edmund Fitzgerald, some of those people that went down with the ship, because it was in cold water and fresh water, they underwent a process of not really decay, but saponification. So their body essentially became like a bar of soap.
Oh.
So they're
So is that what saponification means?
Means, yeah.
Okay.
So they're
new word to me.
Yeah, they're kind of floating around down there. And yeah,
wait, is a bar of soap floating around down there?
Yeah, but they're encased within the bowels of the ship.
Okay.
So divers that go down there can encounter bodies. It's not just the
Still.
Edmund Fitzgerald. It's a lot of different wrecks there.
Still. Because there's been a lot of
Right.
shipwrecks in the Great Lakes.
Right. And it kind of puts them into this weird suspended animation thing.
So that's just with salt water and fresh water, or is it?
That's just with fresh water. Salt water decay happens really fast.
Okay.
Okay. But you can also kind of have variations of this where you mix ashes, for example, with concrete and form it into an artificial reef. Technically, that's a burial at sea, too.
Okay.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But the restrictions and permits in the legal sense are super, and then what the religious sense requires of you is really complicated. Catholic Church is on board with this, and there's actually special prayers and procedures that they have, I guess, traditionally available for somebody who chooses this method of body disposal.
Okay.
Kinda
So God can
interesting.
put you back together if we put you in concrete, make you a barrier reef, but not if we scatter your ashes in the redwoods.
Well,
see.
they have reasons for that. So, for example, Judaism requires dead people to be covered with earth in their unaltered bodily form, to be covered with earth.
Yeah. Within a certain number of days, too, correct?
Probably.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I wonder, too, if that's because there's a lot of different Jewish sects as well
Right.
as there's different Christian sects
Right.
of that religion. So I wonder if it's ubiquitous across all of them. I would think so, but
Yeah, it's a pretty basic requirement, apparently. But in the United States, like I said, the EPA requires internment to be 3 nautical miles from land and at least 600 feet down. But some states have different requirements. Like on our coast, this is specific information to Crescent City. 600 feet deep of water is only about 10 miles offshore. So that's, what is that, halfway to the lighthouse? The Point St. George lighthouse?
I want to say that that's 7, but I honestly don't know. But that seems like several hours on a boat to go and.
Right.
So you just got to sit with dead grandma or your parents or a sibling until you, or God forbid, a child, until you hit that point, and then
Yeah.
shove them off.
Right. In a dignified manner, I would expect. Okay, to use a casket or a plain shroud or just ashes, but we already mentioned that. And the Navy has its own specific requirements for people that are suitable to be buried at sea. So if you're, and I think that's more if you are seeking a naval ceremony for burial at sea.
Well, I know when Osama bin Laden was killed, and they put him back onto the Carl Vinson, that they brought Muslim clerics,
Right.
flew them in to do a Muslim burial at sea, so that they could do
Right.
the honors too. So I think it's not just the seamen on the boat that they would do, and it makes sense too. Where you're going to store dead bodies, that you would have to bury
Right.
the naval staff that way. But yeah, I guess that, and then the chaplain on the boat would just, whatever your religious belief or spiritual beliefs are, would incorporate that into it.
Yeah, I think there's maritime law too that might trump some religious. It's hard to say. I also think President Obama at the time was trying to be respectful to the Muslim community, even if they weren't a friend of the man in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, two, you don't want to incite any more hostility. And then you also don't want anyone to know where the body is, so that it doesn't become
Right.
some kind of a holy site or anything, pilgrimage thing
Right.
later. It's just, this is done. He's
Right.
gone.
And I think if Muslim clerics were cooperating with bin Laden's actual burial, that there might have been some okayness to it.
Yeah.
Although, what a bizarre situation.
Right, the whole thing. But it's still a burial at sea.
Yeah. And then the next two topics are tree burials and mushroom burials. So tree burials are eco-friendly, where the remains are placed in a biodegradable pod
Cool.
beneath a seedling. So they're kind of in a fetal position. It's kind of reverse birth, I guess. In a biodegradable, like, egg, it looks like, and the remains are kind of scrunched in there, and then a hole is dug. They're put into the ground, and then there's a tree over the top of it that's going to be presumably living off the nutrients from the burial.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, I've kind of heard about
could do
those
that.
before too, and I guess, right, being raised religious, it makes sense, right? You would come from the dust of the earth, you're being returned to the dust of the earth, because
Right.
it's just your shell
Right.
anyway.
Right. So that's kind of a green burial.
Huh.
And it can be a cremation pod or a whole body pod. The advantages are that it contributes to reforestation, which is good, habitat restoration, and reduction of carbon footprint. And then you have a living memorial where you can go.
Yeah.
That I think is
So is
sweet.
this something like they do? Is like a graveyard kind of a thing, or is this some more thing like they're like,
I
we're
think-
going to build a new city park and we're going to plant the trees, but underneath them we're going to have our
Right.
neighbors.
Right. I don't think it's a city park, but I think it's. I think there are actual parks where remains are.
So that's
Buried.
it's a graveyard to go and visit
Right.
and picnic in.
Right.
So I just don't have it a freaking graveyard and restore the land. I don't understand the logic there. It still looks like a money grab to me, that you're gonna profit off of somebody else's death.
Probably, but the cost is only $400 to $500.
Really?
That's not much profit compared to.
Yeah, but I'm still thinking that you still have to get processed through a funeral home and then given to these people who put you in a pod and go dig the hole.
Oh, I'm
'Cause
sure there's
got to be more expense there
stuff,
than that.
but it is one of the cheaper ways to be buried.
So the first episode of this incredibly awkward conversation, you talked It's fascinating, though. It just truly
I
is. And we
know.
don't talk about these
We
things.
should.
There's a lot of things that we need to talk about that we don't. Um, do you still have to have like your pacemaker removed or any other medical devices? So you would still have to be processed
Yeah.
physically through
I
a
think
funeral
that-
home
yeah.
before you went to these people.
I suspect there's rules.
Okay.
In different cultures, though, they have tree burials where they, and this is specifically with, I'm going to say it wrong, baobab trees, where there can be a natural cavity in a tree and the body's kind of stuffed in there. And then I thought, well, does it get weird? How are you going to keep people away from it? And the images,
The smell.
yeah, I guess so. But eventually, the images I saw were there was like chicken wire over it, so you couldn't just grab a femur or something.
Wow. But still, I mean,
But that's
that
because
can't
that
be
culture,
healthy for the tree. Right? As a gardener, we don't put hot compost into our gardens and then put seeds in there. So
Right.
there's this part of my brain that's thinking like that scientifically it's a beautiful thing, but how would that
Right.
work? Because
And
that's
you-
not healthy for the plant.
Yeah, you'd probably run out of like cavities in baobab trees.
Right,
But
but
it specifically has to be that type of tree because there's a connection with that particular cultural group.
for spiritual kind of. Okay.
Yeah, so
mean,
it's
they're-
probably a small number of people, and
And they've probably been doing it
Right.
for millennia, and they know more than I do, clearly.
right. So kind of a related one is the mushroom burial, which is newly developed and super eco-groovy. And it's what you do is you get a biodegradable suit, and the cadavers put in that suit. It's called an infinity burial suit, and there's got spores of mushrooms kind of impregnated in it, and the mushrooms just grow and consume the body. But that has the benefit of taking the toxins as the body breaks down and kind of like purifying them.
Nice.
So
But
that's-
those aren't like the mushrooms we get at the store,
It's really
right?
weird. No, it's a especially developed kind, and it's got kind of looks Star Trekky weird. So, but there's a lot more that we could talk about here. Not to mention embalming. Embalming, I think, might be a whole show in itself. But
Yeah.
but I don't. Maybe we'll take a break from this for a little bit.
give people a little bit of right. And it's we're recording this on Palm Sunday for those March 29th. So next Sunday we celebrate a resurrection. So maybe that's what got into us.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating topic, though, and again, in the Western culture, we definitely need to have these conversations
Right.
and be more comfortable with death and with grieving and with the process and understand it, because we don't.
Yeah, we don't, and we don't think about it.
We don't. And
And
then you have
we
all
need
kinds of
to.
issues with mental health and depression and things that set in because, you're only given 3 days. That's enough time to grieve. And then, if you're really lucky, you're given 40 hours of time off from work to deal with all of the things that you need to deal with when somebody that you love passes
so
away.
it's way better when if somebody has a really strong opinion about how they want their body disposed, that they leave it in writing and make sure people know it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then whatever you choose to do, according to your beliefs and your spirituality is just fine. And don't let my inability to grasp the concept sway you in any way.
No,
Although the mushroom thing kind of seems cool.
no, mushroom school.
I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. And I really look forward to having that conversation to find out what happens when you donate your body to science.
Oh yeah, it's wild.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great book. So
right.
we'll talk. We'll do a little book report.
What's the name of the book again for anybody who wants to read it?
I don't know the author off the top of my head, but the book is titled Stiff, Stiff, which is a derogatory kind of slangy name for a corpse.
Okay.
So,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
All right, Lynn, I look forward to seeing you next week. Do you have a topic for next week?
Well, maybe stiff.
Maybe stiff
Although that seems a little weird on Easter Sunday.
or not?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, Lynn, thanks so much. I'll see you
Okay.
next week.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.